Hey, my name is Keith. I'm a professional mountain bike and BMX instructor. I've been coaching since about 2012. I've trained riders all over the country, and one thing that I have noticed that is missing in a lot of YouTube videos is the why. We get a whole bunch of what and how. I like diving into the why. So we're going to get into the weeds, into the why, and we do some of these skills. Today, we're going to work on the functional trail manual. Yes, the manual is for everyone, not just for those show-offs out in the parking lot. But first, let's go over a definition of what a manual is. A manual is riding and balancing on that back tire for a distance without pedaling. The difference between the functional trail manual and the show-off party trick manual is we only have to do it for a short distance. We can manual through a dip, over some roots, through a puddle. The functional trail manual is a very important skill out on the trail. Once you get this, it opens up a whole lot of possibilities. You get more efficient, more speed, smoother, and have more fun. So that's the what, the functional trail manual. All right, so now how? How do we do it? Now the how we do the functional trail manual. So for the manual, to get that front tire up and ride on that back tire, we need to compress down on the bike and then get our weight towards the back. So most tutorials leading up to this point have talked about an L shape, down and back. That's kind of dated advice right now. Mountain bikes have got a lot longer since that L shape came into play, and that L shape really works on BMX bikes and shorter bikes. But since modern mountain bikes have got a lot longer, we want to compress down a little bit of a bias towards the front end. Then I like to think of we're pushing that bike forward. So instead of coming down and getting back on the bike, we're going to come down, bias a little bit towards that front end to get a little bit more compression in that front end. Then we're going to push that bike forward with our heels down. So instead of that L shape, our body in relation to the bike actually makes a little bit of a bracket. So instead of straight down and booty back in relation to the bike, then we're going to go bias towards the front and then booty towards the back of the bike. This really helps out for those riders that are a little bit shorter in stature and are riding 29-inch wheels. That gives a little bit more oomph to get that front tire off the ground. So in the manual, the lower you can get, the more compression you're going to have, the easier it is going to be to get that front tire up. So before we work on the manual, let's roll around and kind of wire our brains to know where our booty and tires meet. So what we're going to do is roll around, let the arms straighten out. We're going to go all the way down and buzz the tire with our rear end. That just gives us our range of motion so we know how far down we can go. If you did just a little bit of compression, you're not going to get a very good manual, but the lower you go, the better manual you're going to have. Cicadas are going big time today. Now also remember that this is your safety valve. That rear brake, you start to loop out, grab that rear brake. Start to loop out, grab that rear brake. That's going to bring that front end down. We want to let our arms extend fully. If we try to pull the bike up with our arms, all we're going to do is pull our body down. Want to be looking straight ahead and try as hard as you can to have a straight back. Don't want to arch that back. That straight back is going to give us control. Now there's another thing here, and it's our foot position on the pedal. Now if you are a clipped-in rider, I recommend either switching to flats to practice this, or get used to unclipping and putting that pedal in the arch of your foot. There's nothing worse than heading towards that back door and knowing you can't get your feet out and you're just along for the ride. So on flat pedals, I recommend scooting your foot a little bit more forward on that pedal. That way it's easier to drop those heels. You can't point your toe on that or you're going to come off the pedals. If you have the ball of your foot, you can point your toe and stay on the pedals. If you move your foot forward, you're going to easily be able to drop those heels. So there's a reason I have these cones set up like this. That is really all the further you need to go for a functional trail manual. Any further than that, you're into showing off territory. So what I'm doing is taking off the front tire at the cones and landing the front tire when the back tire gets through the cones. This is approximating lifting that front tire up onto a ledge, going through a dip, over a series of roots. That's all the further we need to go in order to get a functional manual out on the trail. So when we're just learning this and working on this skill, that full distance might be a little bit too much to start off with. I recommend starting off with just one cone. Once you get consistent manualing just through the cone, so just a bike length, bring them out a little bit further and work on it. We don't need to shoot for the moon to start off with. Find yourself a field, get some cones. You don't need cones. You can use sticks, rocks, your pack, and a piece of nutrition, just something down there on the ground to tell you where to go. Get your phone out, record yourself so you get some video feedback so you can see how you're doing. In self-diagnosis, here's things we want to look out for. First, we want to come in a high ready position, compress down and push that bike forward in one fluid movement. Have those heels dropped, that back straight, and eyes looking forward. Out on the trail, and in order to get the most enjoyment out of our riding, we want to have the least amount of forces acting on our center of mass as possible. So we've got a few options with this feature right here. This does have a rock face, so we can jump over those rocks, or we can just ride up over it and ride those rocks. If we do both of those things, our center of mass is going to rise by the forces that this rock face puts on us. So those forces are also acting on us in a different direction. They're pushing backwards on us. They're slowing us down. We want to minimize the amount of forces that are pushing back on us, maximize the forces that are pushing us forward. That's what pumping is. So in this, we've got the option of either rolling up and jumping it, riding up and absorbing it a little bit, or we can use the trail manual. We're going to pull up and use energy we put into the ground right here to get our center of mass higher. Now we are light at this point in time, so we can float over those rocks and get onto that trail. We had almost zero forces pushing in the backwards direction, everything pointing forward and going down the trail. Okay, this one here is similar to that rock jump. It's basically a roller or hump in the middle of the trail. We want a manual to raise our center of mass, which will make us light on the front side and heavy on the back side, which will give us a good pump. Without the manual, we ride up the front side, causing a slight compression, which in turn slows us down and also makes us light on the back side, not giving us the benefit of the pump. Here we are manualing through a dip. Our center of mass travels more of a straight line, and we actually get a pump from pushing that back tire down. And we are able to absorb on the other side. Without the manual, our center of mass travels down into the dip, and we end up having a compression on the other side. Great place to work on this skill is off the trail and in the controlled environment of the parking lot. Manual up a curb, stand up and absorb that rear end. Get really good at that and you can come out in the trail and nail it. So that is the functional trail manual. It's a super fun and effective skill out on the trail. So now go out and get on it, work on it, and but don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and above all, let's keep it two wheels on dirt.